Associated for compliance. The purpose of this meeting is to get you guys cleared so that you can start your season, right? We'll start every year this way. We'll do reminders related to NCAA rules, some eligibility rules. But before we get started and before the compliance office gets too far down this road, I'm going to just go ahead and turn it over to Jenny Bramer, your sport liaison, and here in another capacity as well.
Thank you, Tim. So for those of you who are new, I just started talking like I know all of you. I'm the sport liaison, and what that means is I help our coaches for certain sports, and I have basketball, men's basketball, track and field, cross country, lacrosse, water polo, volleyball, rowing, and who did I miss? Lacrosse, I think I said twice. And then I also supervise sports medicine and athletic training and risk management and Title IX. And what I try to do is help your coach do everything that he's trying to do within what the rules are. And so we work on everything from like when the search was going on to hire the new coach, I was the lead for the athletic director on that. If coach wants to go to Hawaii and we say no Hawaii, then we try to figure out alternatives and figure out how to accomplish it. So there's a ton that goes into it. And of course, with a new coach, there's questions all the time, which is great because then it makes us rethink how we've maybe been doing things before. And so I just always want to challenge all of you that this is a crazy time, but it's also a great opportunity. You all did very well academically last semester, and so we're hoping that that's the case again. And we want to be advocates for you and help you figure out what this new way of learning is. And in our capacity, we want to get you on the court and figure out how we do that safely so that you can compete and have a great experience. I also today want to talk about, Kelly, if you wouldn't mind putting it up on the PowerPoint. I have just a couple of things that I want to share with all of our teams. And the first one is, you can go ahead and skip to the next slide. The first one is sexual violence prevention and education. And what a way to start off the school year by me coming to talk to you about this. But I do want to do it with all of our teams so that it's in your mind and you're thinking about it. And I do it with the men's team too. And so consent, by now you've learned what consent is, but I'm going to read it anyways because it's a good reminder. Consent for sexual contact means that an individual is a willing participant in the sexual act. Individuals are unable to give consent if incapacitated or influenced by drugs or alcohol, or in some way incapable of giving consent. And so if you or a teammate or somebody have something come up, there's resources available right now. If you've had something in the past or a teammate's had something in the past, there's the same resources are available. On SDSU Talks, I find to be helpful, and you may want to go on there and just do it in private. If you communicate with your athletic trainer or your academic advisor, we can get you resources and help you figure out how you want to take action, because if this has happened to you, I want to put you back in control of the situation. And you're going to learn about this and hear about it quite a bit. Aztec's Going Pro, you'll hear about it in orientation, and the university takes this topic seriously and wants to make sure to do everything we can to prevent sexual violence or any sort of assault from happening. And then if it does, we want to give resources and give you a way to take action and or no action, your choice. Okay. So I'm the Deputy Title IX Coordinator. I've been trained in this topic, and I'm ready to help you or anybody else that might need it. Next slide, Kelly. Okay, so you just received on, I don't know that the new gals have, but everybody else received on August 1st, a reminder about a reported issue. And in the past, reported issue was really focused on, visiting teams or leaving towels in our locker room, or actions that, are, this professor continues to not accept my notes, just things that are out of your control that you wanted to be anonymous. But now we've added in and want you to think about your COVID-19 experience. And so if there's things that you're experiencing that feel out of control or unsafe, or I just saw a notice the other day from some student athletes from a different school saying our coach is making us not report if we have symptoms for COVID-19. Those are the kind of things that you can report anonymously here. I would always recommend that you go to your captains and your coaches as best you can. They are going to help you solve it. They'll know the bigger part of the story. But if it's just not getting solved that way, or you just want to share, please go ahead and go through the reported issue. And then on the next slide is Real Recruit. And we've done surveys related to Real Recruit, just so we have an idea of what we're doing well or not. So keep your eyes open for Real Recruit, and actually it's going to change his name. But as you get information in your email, just keep your eye out for Real Recruit and fill those out, because it's really helpful to our athletics department. Okay, gals, that's it for me. You're going to see me a lot. I want to know what's going on in your life to help you have an amazing experience. That's what fills up my cup. So if you ever need anything, usually I would just tell you I'm right upstairs or down in your gym. But right now I'm via email or text at any time. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jenny. All right, so we'll get this compliance side of it going now. And I believe typically at the end, athletics medicine has a few pieces as well. So again, I've already introduced myself, Tim Lancey, Associate Athletics Director. I'll turn it over to the rest of the staff to quickly introduce themselves and remind you or tell you what they do for our office. So Kelly, go ahead first.
Yeah, hey all, my name's Kelly, Assistant Athletic Director of Compliance. I do a lot of rules education. So we meet with coaches often, and you all as a team, and we'll continue to do so throughout the year as we learn more about what everything's going to be looking like.
Thanks, Lori.
Girls, my name is Lori Mitchell. I work in academics and compliance, so I'm on both sides. Right now, you guys are seeing a lot of emails or forms coming through ARMS, so appreciate you guys getting those done. And if you're transfers, I might be reaching out separately on one of the forms in particular. So anyways, welcome. It's good to have you guys back and good to have you here.
All right, thanks. Jessica?
Muted, Jess.
You're muted. Still muted, Jessica.
My mouse wasn't working. I apologize. Hi, I'm Jessica Hassan. I'm the financial aid coordinator. I am here to help you if you have any questions in regards to your athletic scholarship, any questions in regards to financial aid and scholarships, you know, the application process, any forms, things of that nature, questions in regards to book loan, if you need help with anything with that, and outside scholarships, and your meal plan. Nice to meet everybody.
Thanks. And Sydney?
Hi guys, I'm Sydney. I do a lot of the monitoring, so you'll probably hear from me when it comes to your guys' practice hours, game hours, and a lot of ARMS emails and reminders. So nice to meet you.
Yep. And the only other person who works both with compliance and academics is Jessica Howe, who helped many of you get here and get eligible this year. So, and she's not on the call. The only other reminder on the slide is this ARMS. At this point, I think everybody, and give me a nod if you know what ARMS is. Okay. I think everybody knows what it is. At this point, if you don't have it downloaded on your phone, I would highly encourage you to go ahead and download the app. While this semester, you'll probably use it mostly for calendar. So your calendar on ARMS is going to be hopefully a one-stop shop for you guys. It's going to have your volleyball activities on it, but it's also going to have your class schedule on it as well. And eventually, if you have tutoring sessions, the goal is to have any sort of tutoring on there as well. So we're trying to get it to where there is one calendar that's truly the place you can check as it relates to SCSU athletics. You'll also have the ability to check into meetings and classes on there when we have in-person classes, but it will be important for you to go ahead and get that app downloaded. All right, so throughout this presentation today, typically in the past, we've done Kahoot or some sort of engagement type deal. We do have a poll that's going to pop up on your screen, so I ask you to kind of pay attention and check out your screen here in just a moment. And we'll go ahead and get this first one underway to make sure it works properly. All right, everybody sees that? So we're going to ask you questions before we go into a topic to see how well we know it before we start talking about it. So this one's asking, how many units do you need to be enrolled in to practice and compete if you're an undergraduate student? Not sure how many participants we have. All right, so it looks like majority of people selected 12 units, 73%. Some people think they only need to be a 9, and some people think 6. So let's get into that and talk about, well, is there one more question?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Second. We'll do one more question real quick here. How many units do you need to pass during the academic year? This is an eligibility question as well. Still waiting on a few responses. All right, and for this one, we have a mixed answers. We have 18, 12, and 22 with 64% saying 18. So let's go ahead and get into those questions then. This slide will answer everything and we'll kind of walk through it. The first one is for undergraduate students, you have to be enrolled in 12 units to be eligible for any sort of practice or competition, right? Same thing we talk about every year for our returners, that if you're gonna make changes to your class schedule, always add a class before dropping it, because if for any reason you go down to 11 or 10 units, you actually cannot practice that day. And if it was a day of competition, you wouldn't be able to compete. If you did practice or compete, it would be a violation. We have to reinstate you. So always make sure that you're maintaining 12 units as an undergraduate student. There are exceptions to this. With anything, there's exceptions. Your academic advisors are very aware of them, but if you're in their last term of enrollment for graduation or there's a few others, there might be instances where you could be in less than 12. For any graduate students, if we have graduate students on the call, your full-time enrollment is considered 9 units. From a continuing eligibility, we're not going to get into all the details. Again, our academic advisors will help you through and navigate this process, but you have to pass at least 6 every term. So if you're going to have a bad term for any reason, make sure that you're at least passing 6 units in order to continue to be eligible for the next semester. And then the second question that we asked was how many units are in the academic year do you have to pass to maintain your eligibility? And the minimum is 18 every academic year. For the 18 and the 6, those are all classes that count towards your degree, so they can't just be fluff classes. They have to be degree applicable classes. If you're an incoming freshman, if you're new, you have to pass 24 units starting this summer counts, the academic year counts, and next summer counts. For everybody else, the 18 units does not count for summer. Summers do not count towards 18. And then the last piece of eligibility is your continuing eligibility. So every year, in order to maintain your eligibility after 2 semesters, you have to meet a certain benchmark towards your degree. 40, 60, 80 are the examples here prior to your 3rd, 4th, or 5th year. On the right side of the screen is the clocks and the seasons of competition. As we've talked about in the past, you have 5 years on your clock. Your clock starts once you begin full-time enrollment at any school. So once you begin full-time in a JC, a 4-year school, it doesn't matter, collegiate institution, your clock starts in Division I, and it will not stop. Within those 5 years, you have 4 years to compete in any one sport. The last 2 things on this slide are just talking about red shirts. A red shirt is when you don't play in any games. That's considered a red shirt. That's why you have 5 years to compete 4 times to build in that red shirt year. If for any reason you do compete, the only way to get that year back typically is through a medical hardship. So if you were injured early on and you meet the criteria listed on the screen, we would work to get a waiver for you to try and get your season back. Any questions on this slide? Great. A couple academic integrity reminders here, and the importance of it is obviously restated over and over again by us and the academic staff. But it is important to complete and submit your own coursework. What's really important right now in this virtual learning space that we're on is that you guys are not sharing your login information with others, including SDSU staff members, coaches, staff members. They should not have your login information. As we've talked about in the past, when there's violations and the NCAA does investigations in this space, they'll be able to look to see where people logged in and from where. So the location of the login, and if it's not your residence, it often results in a violation of some sort because other people are helping out. Tutors, we have tutors. We have plenty of tutors and a lot of help available through the SAS department. The tutors and academic staff are not meant for you to go help you just do your homework. They're meant to help you learn the materials and conceptualize and understand it. So don't go in there expecting them just to help you do your homework every week if you have a tutor. If you're hiring a tutor outside, you have to pay the going rate, and we'd always say check in with us to make sure that we're following all applicable policies.
Okay, Mike, the entire story comes down to one former tutor, University of Missouri, NCAA Division I Committee on Infractions came down hard on Missouri. The Tigers have been given 3 years of probation, no postseason football, baseball, or softball for 1 season. There will be a 5% reduction in scholarships for those sports and also recruiting restrictions.
Right, so we talked about that a little bit last year, but what that is Missouri last year, a year and a half ago, had a major infractions case regarding academic integrity, and one tutor helped 12 student athletes across, I don't know if it was 3 or 5 sports. It was a major issue because 3 sports lost postseason eligibility over it, and many of the victories that happened or wins that happened during those years had to be vacated. So extremely significant penalties can follow not just the student who was the one that was involved in academic integrity issues, but the whole program and the whole school. All right, jumping into this next topic, and Sydney will take it away, but I'll help her with the poll.
We got 2 questions.
So this one's asking, what does not count against your practice hours? And if you don't know what practice hours are yet, Sydney will tell you all about that. All right, so the first one is about just about everybody thinks that community service is the one. And then we'll do the second question here. Voluntarily watching film with your coach counts against your practice hours. True or false?
Ooh. Little half and half here.
Yeah, it looks like we've got a mixed bag on this one. Looks like we have 58% says it should count, and 42% thinks that it should not count. So close this, and Sydney, feel free to take it away.
Yeah, can we go videos on, everyone? This is a super important topic for us to get through. Want to make sure we can have an open conversation about it too.
Okay, so every month you'll have a time management plan, and the expectations of this is just that it's got your whole schedule from your practice hours to games to required activities, whether it's community service, media events, all those kind of things on one calendar, and it should always be available to you prior to the first of the month. Any major changes that will happen will have to be approved by your sport liaison, and it's usually within 24 hours. But right now things are a little different, so there may be a couple changes early on in the month, but those are what we expect for your time management plan. And then your care hours, go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. These are what will count towards your hours. So anything from practice, weights, film, contests, skill instruction, team meetings, and then even like one-on-one meetings. During season, or preseason, you'll have unlimited hours, but you also have to have at least 1 day off from physical activity. And then during season, you'll have 20 hours within a week, 4 hours max per day, and you have to have at least 1 day off every week.
I think preseason technically is when your first permissible practice for starting, tomorrow, I believe, through the day prior to the first day of school is what considered preseason for the sake of this discussion.
I think we're starting on Friday, right, Kara?
Friday?
Yeah. Okay. The next bullet, please. And then when you guys do have a contest, you should know that it'll always count as 3 hours, whether it goes longer or shorter. That'll always be counted towards 3 hours of the week. And then travel days count as a day off, but you have to obviously not participate in any activities, usually meetings, but this should just be a day for strictly travel. And out of season, you'll have 8 hours per week, but then you also have 2 days off. And then only 4 out of those 8 hours can be skill instruction. So these are a couple ways that you'll get reminders to approve your hours. The easiest way is when it comes to an email reminder, if you go ahead and click on the green button at the bottom, it says certify all of the above events. It'll approve anything that's listed. If you think you need to make any changes, please feel free to reach out. Or if you feel like there was something that should have been counted that was, or vice versa. If you click in the red where it says need more information, it'll give you details as to what happened that day, who was all there, and then or like how long it was. So just one thing, just so you guys don't get too confused, when you do review your hours, the word that you'll see, like whether it's in blue or red, is the action that you're submitting. So if you click it and then it slides over to reject, then that's what you're submitting. Usually, like when you click it, everybody thinks that you're approving them, but the main point is that you want to make sure the word that you see before you click submit is the action that you want to submit. That can get a little confusing sometimes, but go ahead and go to the next slide, Kelly. So these are your required athletic related activities. We just call this RARA. So this is anything from community service, media events, whether you're hosting recruits, fundraising events, and then team building activities. These should also be on your calendar for your time management plans, but these should not take place on a day off. So if you're hosting a recruit, it shouldn't be on a day off. And then it doesn't count against your care hours. So these are all separate from the 20 hours that are allowed within a week. And then your voluntary activities, that question was a little tricky, but if you do initiate anything from extra time to lift or watching film with your coaches, it does count towards your specific hours. So you just want to be careful when you do ask for that. You want to make sure it fits within your time frame to also be included in anything you do with your team. Anything voluntary should not be rewarded or punished. So if you post it on social media, there shouldn't be any likes or comments from your coaching staff. And then just remember that they can offer you times, but they can't make it mandatory for you to be there.
Yes, I think to be super clear on this piece is if you're someone who wants to work extra with your accountable coaches, so your head coach and the assistant coaches, that even if you're requesting that one-on-one time with them or two of you, whatever it may be, if it's film or if it's on the court, that counts against your hours. If you go to your strength coach and say you want to get in extra work and you work directly with that person and it's not reported back to your coaches, that it does not count against your hours necessarily. So that's kind of the wiggle room they give for if you want to work on your strength and conditioning separately, you can do that in your own time. But be mindful that if your accountable coaches are there, your head or assistant coaches, or they're requiring you to report back, that counts against your hours. All right, let's go ahead and move on to extra benefits. So the NCAA uses this term to describe anything that's not available to the general public or general student body that you are receiving because of your status as a student athlete outside of everything that the athletics department is providing for you. So an easy example or a simple example for this would be if you are at a restaurant and you're wearing your San Diego State volleyball gear and that individual, whoever works there, is trying to give you a discount or an item for free because of your status. So there's a difference of going to a restaurant and everyone who has a red ID gets whatever percentage off their meal. Go ahead and utilize that if you'd like. And then the difference is if you're just getting it because of your status as a student athlete, right? A big piece of this is social media and how this is coming into play, especially when it comes to influencing or people trying to send you, whether it's apparel items or whatever it may be for you to post it on your social media. We have to be super careful in that space as well. Player guest tickets. So as this is kind of being flushed out in more detail, the general NCAA rules here are that it's 4 per player, not sold or traded for any items of value. It's meant for your friends, your family. This process will be done through ARMS, and we'll give you a better breakdown of what that looks like once we receive more information of exactly how that's going to be filtered through as everyone's figuring out how this fall is going to function, really. A piece of this is if you use an outside trainer or outside coach, that NCAA-wise, you cannot use San Diego State facilities, and that's just a blanket rule they have. So it's not just Peterson Gym, it's not just the weight room, it's all San Diego State facilities, so just keep that in mind. You got to pay that going rate if they have a rate, and being mindful that that individual cannot use your name, image, or likeness to promote their business. So sometimes we'll see where these individual trainers post on social media like, oh, look, I trained so-and-so from San Diego State. Come check me out and, hire me to train you kind of thing. So we have to be careful in that space as well. Name, image, and likeness is being developed and is coming down the pipeline, but it's not in effect until next August. So as we receive more information, when it comes to that space, we'll be meeting with teams to kind of flush through that.
Princeton University now has 1 year of probation and a nearly $50,000 fine. NCAA found 33 student athletes were paid to work they didn't do as summer camp employees. The NCAA says the decision was made by the Division I Committee on Infractions. They found student athletes from football and men's and women's basketball teams didn't walk out when they left their shifts.
All right, so that's a pretty simple example of these employment rules and how they come into effect. So the NCAA has had these rules in effect for a very long time. Being paid for the going rate for the work you actually do, right? And that's a piece where these TCU athletes in a few sports essentially never clocked out of the job they had, so they were being overpaid for the work they didn't do. So that's kind of how it impacted their eligibility there. And likely they were being overpaid for their reputation as an athlete. So we have to be mindful in that space, kind of help protect yourself there. We have a student athlete employment approval form on ARMS as well. We'll show you where to find that later. Same goes for camp employment. These rules are still in effect. One big thing is that the NCAA does not allow you to conduct your own camp as a student athlete. Again, these might and are likely to change with the name, image, and likeness rules, but for now and until those come into effect, we're still operating under these rules. Same with private lessons, right? So if you want to make some extra cash by conducting private lessons, just have a going rate, can't use San Diego State facilities, and the uncomfortable piece is not being able to use your name, image, and likeness in this space either. So a lot of word of mouth. It's tough when it's so easy to post on social media about it, but nonetheless, it's still restricted NCAA-wise. So we kind of have to be careful there as well. All right, I think we got one poll for this topic. All right, we got a gambling question about fantasy leagues and if these are prohibited by NCAA rules. All right, like what I see here, we'll kind of dive into it a bit more, starting off with some financial aid information.
All right, I'll quickly touch on this, and then Jessica, feel free to jump in on anything I may have missed. But in general, your athletics aid agreements, if you guys are on athletics aid, they have terms to them, obviously, terms and conditions. So hopefully when you sign them, you take a moment to read through those and truly understand all the makeup of what the aid agreements are allowed. So they can be increased at any time. But athletics aid can only be canceled during the academic year for certain criteria being met. If you are ineligible, academically ineligible, or NCAA ineligible, you quit the team, you break certain rules, or if you put in your notification of transfer. The notification of transfer piece, we can cancel aid at the end of the semester after the semester that it was submitted. So if you submit it in fall, we can cancel at the end of the fall semester. Take the time to understand your scholarships, please. Every year, we have a deadline by the NCAA to notify you about the upcoming year. If your aid is going to be renewed or not renewed, we usually get those out at the end of June. All notifications go to your SDSU email now, and it is sent via ARMS. The only other thing is most athletic aid agreements are one-year scholarships unless your terms on your agreement indicate otherwise, and that at the end of the agreement, the athletics department has the ability to cancel or non-renew for any reason. Jessica, did we miss anything on this slide?
No, looks good.
Great. From an amateurism standpoint, obviously we keep talking about the NCAA rules. In this sense, you verify or you certify your amateurism when you go through your initial eligibility process when you're coming out of high school. This is something that you do as part of your eligibility. In order to maintain that, it's just a matter of following all these rules that we're talking about today, whether it be employment, tutoring, academics. Obviously, some examples below would be to jeopardize your amateurism, would be receiving payment for play or professionalizing in any sport, or participating on teams during the academic year too. And that's one that's probably easier to mix up. And we'll show you a slide in a minute that talks about that. But during the academic year, any competition you take part in, any organized competition, can only be with SDSU. So you cannot join any sort of outside team during the academic year until May 15th or May 1st. I forget which one it is. Also, the name, image, likeness, I know Kelly hit on it. Right now, name, image, likeness is not a thing in terms of being allowed to take advantage of it. So you can't use your name, image, likeness to be used to promote or endorse anybody. You know, if you had a friend who's a personal trainer that you're working with, you couldn't do a testimonial for them right now. That may all change next year. We fully anticipate next year to be a whole different ballgame, and you're going to have a lot of flexibility to take advantage of employment opportunities or just opportunities just to use your name to spread your brand. In the meantime, for this year particularly, just check with us if you have any sort of unique opportunities. We always have a few every year where there's some sort of social media influencer or self-employment, or somebody starting a company, or writing a book, or want to get into modeling. That happens pretty normally. Student athletes are often approached by it, or student athletes are entrepreneurs and want to take advantage of that. Just check in with our office. We'll try and work through it. If there's a way to get it done, we'll help you guys get it done. If there's not, we'll advise you to probably wait until next year. So again, we'll keep talking about the name, image, likeness over the next year. We'll probably have meetings with every sport at some point as the NCAA develops this new legislation, what it's going to look like. But like I said, it's going to be pretty impactful and a lot of things are going to change. Outside competition, I briefly touched on it, but in short, you can't wear your SDSU stuff during the academic year for any other teams. Really, you shouldn't be competing on any teams until after May 1st. If you see on the right-hand side for the team sports, if you are competing in some sort of outside team in the summer, if you have a club team that you're playing on, or I don't know if it's a beach team or whatever it may be, it's limited to 2 from the school at a time. So you can't have more than 2 people from San Diego State on the same team for that outside competition. There's opportunities to potentially receive expenses to compete on outside teams as long as it's necessary expenses. Again, that'll be a form that you fill out that we can help you with. So if you're going to go do this, if you're going to go compete elsewhere, check out on ARMS. There's a form to fill out, and it'll help us to contact you to kind of walk through that. The only other one is if you're doing any sort of national team stuff, there's also exceptions for that we can help. You're muted, Kelly.
Sorry.
Richmond baseball players who've been ruled ineligible by the NCAA because they participated in fantasy football. The NCAA considers fantasy sports with an entry fee to be a form of sports wagering, therefore off limits to student athletes.
Right, so that was a quick highlight from ESPN this past year of some student athletes at a school that became ineligible because they were participating in a fantasy football pool, which brings us to this gambling and wagering rules that the NCAA has. As it stands right now, staff, employees, and student athletes are prohibited from gambling or wagering on any sports that the NCAA sponsors at any level. So obviously you can't bet on volleyball at the high school, college, or professional level. It doesn't matter where the professional league exists. This also includes fantasy sports, as you saw in that video. If you're playing fantasy sports, you can do it if it's free. But once you wager anything or put anything of value in order to win, that would be considered a wager, and you would not be able to do that. Obviously, the last piece of this is just not to provide information publicly related medical or injury. You'll see teammates, you'll see other sports student athletes that may be injured, that may have walking the halls on crutches or whatever it may be. Be very mindful that that's private information to San Diego State, and it's to be protected. There are people, unfortunately, out there that are looking to gain information on injuries as it relates to gambling or betting, and may we've had staff members contacted from friends regarding this information. It's extremely important that we protect that and we don't influence any sort of outcomes of potential contests. We have a poll that's going to go up again. This one is going to be related to agents. Quick one here, just one question. If an agent calls you, can you have a conversation with that person? All right, looks like the answer is mixed. 40% of us think that we can talk with them. 70% think that we cannot.
So short answer for that one is yes, you can communicate with these people. So agents are, and I'll kind of direct you to this piece of who is an agent, that all these individuals fall into these NCAA rules. The common and obvious ones are those sports agents and what they call their runners, who are people who are kind of like the middle individuals in between the athlete and the agent or the agency. But what we're also running into now, of course, with social media is marketing representatives. So these are people who, anyone who's trying to gain any sort of financial gain from your reputation as an athlete falls into this category. A piece of this is how you can communicate with these people. So you're welcome to have these conversations with these individuals to set yourself up for later on once you are done with your eligibility, right? The biggest piece is that you just can't agree to anything. And we're not even talking just in writing, but the NCAA also includes a verbal agreement. So what we have to be careful of is when we're communicating with these people that we're not saying, yes, you can represent me when I'm done with this year or when I'm done with my eligibility. That's kind of where we have to be super mindful. And the other piece of this is benefits from these individuals. So what we have to be careful of is while you want to retain your eligibility, that if you're going out to eat with these people or whatever it is, that you're not letting them pick up the tab. Same goes with your family members and your friends. Agents or these marketing reps will sometimes try to get to you through them, and they can certainly impact your eligibility in this space as well. So these communications are welcome and permissible, just being mindful of that agreement piece and that benefits piece as well. All right, I think we have 2 drug testing poll questions. All right, so is marijuana an NCAA banned substance? All right, majority saying yes, and then they got one more question. Then NCAA penalty for performance enhancing drugs. All right, a little all over the map.
All right, so a couple of tests, right? We have the NCAA drug test and San Diego State drug test. We're going to talk about NCAA drug testing first. The NCAA does not tell us when they're going to drug test. They give us about a 24-hour notice. It's randomly selected on schools and sports. They'll notify us. Usually they pick 3 to 5 sports and then a couple student athletes from each sport, give it or take. It is highly likely that you're going to be selected when we make the postseason. So hopefully every year we're in the postseason, and that's a higher chance that we're being tested for. And so what is the NCAA penalties? And we briefly talked about that. The first one is a positive test for performance-enhancing drugs. Is a 365-day, 1-year suspension, and you lose your season of eligibility. So you couldn't say it's a redshirt year, right? For street drugs, which is our marijuana type drugs, would be 50% of your season automatically. While there's an appeal process for this, we reiterate that that process is extremely difficult. The bar is extremely high to try and win any of those appeals. And it continues to be stated year and year again, and we got a reminder of last month, that the common trend right now for performance-enhancing drugs is positives as a result of supplements that are over the counter. So your GNC, your protein supplements, your dietary supplements, that is still the trend, that people or student athletes using those products products have a banned substance in them that are generally not known to the student athletes at the time. And not knowing is not a reason for an appeal. So it is a loss of a year of eligibility by taking those. So that is our reminder, again, to please check in with your athletic trainer or your strength coach if you're taking any sort of dietary or supplements, to make sure that we're vetting through the if they're safe or not to take. The other one is medicine. If you're on any sort of prescription medicine, it is important for your athletic trainer to be aware of it and to have copies of the prescription in your name. If you're taking prescription medicine that's not in your name and it comes up as a banned substance, because there are some prescriptions that are banned, if the prescription is not in your name and on file, they'll consider a performance-enhancing drug as well. So please keep all that information, keep your athletic trainers involved with any sort of supplements or medicine you're putting in your body. The other one is SDSU drug testing. From that, we do control the timing on that. It is pretty frequent that we do this, and it is random still. Again, the penalties are a little different. Every time there's going to be a mandatory counseling fee, you have to do an online class at San Diego State. There's some community service involved, and then depending on the timing of how many positive you've had, will determine if there's going to be any sort of suspensions from practice or competitions, or if you're going to lose your athletics aid. The athletics department has a standard policy, but every team has the ability to have stricter policies than the department one. So please make sure you review your team rules as well. We have another poll here. This is the last poll that we have. So when you're recruiting prospects, you're going to get some host money. Can you use that money to buy a recruited t-shirt at the bookstore? All right, looks like that everybody said no, so no need to share that. So our rules on recruiting.
All right, so there's two types of visits, official and unofficial. And basically the difference is one is paid for by SDSU and then the other is paid for by the recruit. On these visits, recreational activities are voluntary. A coach can set them up if the PSA wants to participate in something like a game with you guys, but coaches may not be present. And then you guys also cannot report back to the coaching staff, whether they did good, they did bad, or whatever the performance is like. And then if you're serving as a student host, you can be provided a cash allotment each day for entertainment. Entertainment must take place within 30 miles of the campus. And then a recruit's visit to campus can't be publicized. So remember, just no pictures, no videos, Snapchat, whatever. It just can't be posted on social media. But even if you guys want to comment on social media about a prospect, you can. It just can't be provided at the direction of a coach or SDSU staff member. The next one. So these are some of the reminders that if you are a host, it'll be on the form that you'll sign, but basically just no underage or excessive drinking of alcohol, no drug use or sexual misconduct. Just remember to treat your prospect as you would want to be treated, and then kind of the media and what we went over already. But just as a host, you want to make sure that you read these over because you are technically responsible for them. And then just you always want to make sure that they have a number or a place that they can always reach you at.
All right, last couple slides here. So this is when you log into ARMS, and I know you've been completing forms already. These are the forms that will always be available to you as we go throughout the academic year and summer as issues arise. So if you are outside competition, we have a form there, student athlete employment, all these things we've already been talking about, right? And then another workflow piece, that's just department-wide, is that travel waiver request form. Typically, we would used to have a hard copy of that. It's done through ARMS now, so if that's basically if you're going to be traveling separate from the team for any reason, that's where you would find that form as well. All right, so a piece we need to discuss, and the form you would find right here is notification of transfer. We bring this up because the NCAA has developed this database of if you wanted to communicate with other coaches from other schools. And this is something that has changed throughout the years. It used to be called permission of contact, and now we're in this notification of transfer space. So you can find our policy on goaztecs.com. We have a compliance area, and it would be down at the bottom of this website right here. And a piece of this is kind of just making sure that we are really looking through that policy. There are resources that can be taken away on some level. Always communicate with your coaching staff about this prior to submitting it to our office, just so there's transparency in this space and it can be discussed so everyone's on the same page. It would go through ARMS, and then we have 2 business days to get your name on that NCAA portal. They would send you an auto email that this has been completed, and then you would go ahead and communicate with other coaches. So essentially there's no permission that needs to be requested anymore. It's just you want to be put on the portal, you get put on the portal, and you communicate with other coaches. So if this comes up for you and it's something you want to explore, we can certainly discuss this with you at a later date, one-on-one or whatever is comfortable for you as well. But want to nonetheless make sure you know that process as we kind of go forward here. All right, that's all of our slides from a compliance standpoint. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Are there any questions or any topics that you all want to hit on before we kind of pass it over to sports medicine and Deb? All right. Deb, are you with
I actually have a question.
Go on.
Sorry.
No.
I saw that I just got like a notification. The NCAA just came out with like, I don't know, like it says board directs each division to safeguard student athletes' well-being, scholarships, and eligibility. Like I think it just came out, and it says like there's like a set date to determine like fall sports or something. Do we talk about this in this meeting? I don't even know really.
Yeah, no, it's a good question actually. That just came out. Yeah, so the Board of Governors.
So curious.
Yeah, no, you're fine asking. The Board of Governors met yesterday, and this is there was a lot of discussions a lot of thoughts at least a week or so ago that they would make a decision on if fall sports were going to happen or not, right? And they ultimately decided not to make a decision. They decided that they wanted a few more weeks, so that date that you're talking about is August 14th.
Yeah.
Two, what they did is that they said each division has to make the call by that date. So now it's going to go down to a lower committee, and obviously Division I specific can make a call different from Division II or Division III, which is probably the right call, right?
Yeah.
That being said, there's not a lot of clarity, right? I think at this point, based on the guidance and the email that they put together, that we're all still planning on going forward with the season. The only minimums that they put in that is that at least 50% of eligible teams have to want to do a season. So if you're in a sport, which volleyball is not one of them, but some sports have had more conferences just straight cancel their whole fall already. So by doing that, they have to try and keep track that at least 50% of the teams are still wanting to have a season. So there's going to be a lot of conversation in the next, I would say, week or so, week and a half. But as of right now, we fully anticipate to still move forward with the season.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also some other information in that email for those that didn't see it. There's going to be information in there for student athletes to be able to contact the NCAA if for any reason you feel unsafe or if you feel that the school is not following their safety protocols. I think a lot of that's coming out of what Jenny mentioned earlier. There was a school that there were some complaints recently that coaches were encouraging people not to report COVID symptoms, and obviously the NCAA doesn't want any of that. So while we're against that, we want everybody to feel comfortable. There's also an outside NCAA reporting line if you guys feel completely uncomfortable coming to us with that. The last piece of this as well, which is, I'm glad you brought that up, is that if any student athletes feel uncomfortable, unsafe going forward, that their scholarships would still be honored.
All right. Okay, so I'm gonna,
question.
oh,
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
What is that like? I guess I don't know if you'll know the answer or not, but for seniors, so if they come out with like this kind of like eligibility thing where we may not have this season,
Yep.
there's 3 or 4 of us that are graduating.
Yeah, the only, we don't have the information, but we can use the same application that they did for the spring sports. And how they did the spring was they essentially said you can come back and have another year because they either started and didn't finish or they just didn't start. So that's generally, they would apply that same application if for any reason the season was canceled. For those that opt out and decide that it's not safe, they haven't given us clarification on if they're going to get another year or not. I think the assumption is yes, but we don't exactly know what that's going to look like at this point.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, Deb.
No, you're fair. I think the goal is to have a lot of this squared away before the start of the season so that student athletes can make the decisions that they feel best fit to make.
Thanks, Tim.
all right, I'm gonna start by showing the concussion video. Kelly, do I have the access so I can share the screen or? Yeah. Ah.
Deb, is this supposed to have sound?
Yes. Can you not hear it?
Nope.
Oh my gosh.
More just background music. It doesn't actually.
Oh, that's all it is.
Okay.
It doesn't.
Okay. I didn't know if there was like speaking
Yeah,
during these.
that's all the sound you get.
Okay.
All right, that's pretty straightforward. I'll be sending, can you guys hear me? Yes? Okay. Ah! Ah! Go away. Sorry about that. Do I send, Kelly, I wasn't sure if I need to initiate the concussion statement on ARMS or is that you guys?
That comes from your office.
Okay, nobody made that clear to me, so thank you. So yeah, obviously you guys, if you were paying attention to the video, I think some of you guys have watched it many times. report anything that you think might maybe be a concussion symptom. If you know you kind of bonked your head or got hit with the ball, and even if you're just not sure, it's always worth taking a look at. You know, don't like wait it out and see if you feel better. Just let me know. It's simple to check you out real quick, and if you're fine, you're fine. But it is a serious thing that, you know, you guys need to make sure you're telling us about, because, you know, we can't read your mind. We don't know how you're feeling. If you don't tell us about it, we have no way of knowing. And then, am I supposed to have these slides? Yes. Oh my gosh. Wow. Hang on. I don't know who exactly was supposed to like tell me about all this, but Lisa sent me the slides the other day.